It being the first hour of our Friday program, it being time for Senator Bernie Sanders, our Brunch with Bernie hour. Be sure to check out his website over at sanders.senate.gov and his Facebook page. Senator Sanders.
Good to be with you, Tom.
Happy Friday.
You too.
So a lot going on in the Senate and on your plate, I'm guessing.
There is. We are keeping busy. Let me just rattle off some of what went on in the Senate this week. Here's some good news. We often don't have the opportunity to talk about good things happening, but this week the Senate, after months of negotiations, finally passed an extension of long-term unemployment benefits. And I know a lot of people have been calling us up on this show. We finally did it in the Senate. We managed to get 5 or 6 Republicans to join us, and we got the 60 votes that we needed. That's the good news. The bad news is that it goes to the House, where the Speaker there, John Boehner, the Republican Speaker, has not shown much interest in making sure that some 2.5 million American workers who are long-term unemployed and their families get the benefits that they desperately need. So the politics of the situation is now that we've got to put as much pressure as we can on the Republicans in the House and tell them that morally it is unacceptable, that we're leaving long-term unemployed people out to drift with no income at all, that economically it is stupid because these people don't have money to spend. It will result in the loss of several 100,000 jobs in this country. So we've got to work on that. It is a huge issue, and I'm glad that we finally made some progress in the Senate. On the other hand, we did not have success. We did not get Republican support for the issue of pay equity. In the United States today, women earn approximately 77 cents for every dollar that a man earns, and there's no way to justify that. We have made some progress as a nation. We have a long, long way to go. This pay equity legislation would have accelerated progress, brought us closer to the day where women made the same earnings as men, and we're going to continue that fight. But we could not get any Republican support. Again, we had a majority in the Senate. You need 60 votes. We could not get any Republican support. On Thursday, in the House, the Republicans voted to support the Ryan budget, the budget of chairman of the Budget Committee there, Paul Ryan. And I'll tell you, Tom, when you look at that budget, people really, I think, would not believe what we would be saying about it. They think you're kidding, you're exaggerating, you're being political. But here's the story. We are living in a country today where, as I think most people know, the middle class is disappearing, poverty is increasing, millions of people are working for longer hours and lower wages, and we have the most unequal distribution of wealth and income of any major country on earth. So at a time when the richest people are becoming much richer, when corporate profits are at an all-time high, when 1 out of 4 corporations pays nothing in federal income taxes, what the Ryan budget does is substantially lower taxes for the rich. For the average millionaire will be paying $200,000 a year less in taxes and substantial reduction in corporate taxes. Meanwhile, at a time when working families are struggling to send their kids to college, struggling to deal with health care, struggling to put gas in the car to get to work, they make savage cuts in the programs that working families need. So we're talking about ending Medicare as we know it right now and converting it to a coupon program or voucher program where instead of covering all basic health care needs for seniors are given a $7,000, $8,000 check and told to go out and get private health insurance. Massive cuts in the Ryan budget to Medicaid. So right now what some of us are trying to do is expand health care opportunities. The Affordable Care Act is now providing health care for 10 million more Americans who did not have health insurance. What they want to do is make massive cuts through the Ryan budget in Medicaid. Families are trying desperately to send their kids to college. Major cuts in the Pell Grant program, probably the major federal program to make college affordable for working families. People right now, people listening to the show, and wondering how they're going to put food on the table for their kids. And their solution is massive cuts in the food stamp program. So, I mean, I just urge people to take a look at the Ryan budget. Go to my website, go to any other website that you want, because I think people think I'm over-exaggerating on this or whatnot. But they are doing precisely what the American people do not want. They are doing precisely what the American people do not need. The American people have been very clear. We have to strengthen the social safety net. No cuts in Medicare, no cuts in Medicaid. They are doing exactly the opposite. The American people have been very clear. At a time when the wealthy are doing phenomenally well, they've got to be paying more in taxes. They cut taxes. So it is, it's an obscene budget, but it does tell you what right-wing extremism is all about. What we did this week also, I'm chairman of a subcommittee on primary health care and aging, and we've been working hard. We had a great hearing on the crisis of primary health care. Some wonderful physicians from all over the country. A guy named Stan Brock came, and he's head of an organization, Tom, that does what you would think would be happening in a third world country. He goes to areas in California and Virginia and all over the country and brings together doctors and dentists who are providing their services free, and they do it out in a field or in a baseball field or in a football stadium or whatever, and people line up. Sometimes they spend the night in the cars in order to get the opportunity to see a doctor or a dentist. And he talked about the crisis in primary health care. We had some doctors there talking about the success we're having in expanding community health centers. Other people talking about the absurd waste of money in the sense that when you do not provide health care to people, they end up in the emergency room, they end up a lot sicker than they otherwise would be, that in fact you save money by investing in primary health care, and that's something we're working very hard to do. So those are just a few of the things that took place in the Senate, at least that I was involved in during the last week.
In the meantime, I subscribed to your newsletter and read your website, and I saw that you came across David Koch's 1980 presidential platform.
Well, in all honesty, it was a staffer of mine, a fellow named Warren Gunnels, who does a great job for me. And what Warren discovered, and this was really, really very important, is when we talk about the Koch brothers, and we talk about their right-wing agenda, and we talk about the fact that they are worth $80 billion and are prepared and are spending hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to elect right-wing candidates, what people should understand is the ideas that the Koch brothers are talking about now are not just, ideas that they came up with 6 months ago. These are ideas that they have been talking about, right-wing extremist ideas, for 35 years. David Koch, in 1980, ran as the Libertarians Party vice presidential candidate. And during that election, he propounded, along with his presidential candidate, just right-wing, nutty ideas. They got all of 1% of the vote. The frightening thing is that the right-wing extremist marginal ideas that Koch talked about in 1980 are now mainstream Republican Party ideas today. And that is how far the Republican Party has moved to the right and the influence of Koch brothers' money.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. It's absolutely extraordinary. Senator Bernie Sanders taking your calls right after this, 15 minutes past the hour in our national town hall meeting, Brunch with Bernie.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And be sure to check out Senator Sanders' Facebook page and his website over at sanders.senate.gov. And welcome back, Senator. You want to take? Was there anything you wanted to add, or should we pick up calls?
Let's take the questions.
Okay, great. Walter, watching Free Speech TV in Chicago, Illinois, on the Dish Satellite Network. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Thank you for taking my call, Tom. I'm a question for Senator Sanders. I know you're very involved with the United States Postal Service, and For some reason, I see a connection between that and the concept of the national bank as they have in North Dakota. Because the Postal Service is throughout the country, why not a national bank by and for the citizens?
Okay, good question, Walter. Let me tell you what I think. You got two separate issues here. We have been deeply involved in saving the post office, preventing the loss of hundreds of thousands of jobs, and making sure that people can go to a post office in rural America, make sure that mail is delivered in a prompt way. And the root cause right now of the Postal Service's financial problems has everything to do with the $5.5 billion that they uniquely and in an unprecedented way are forced to pay for future health retiree benefits. They've had to make 75 years of benefit payment in a 10-year period without having to do that. And no other entity in the government has to do that. No entity in the private sector has to do that. They would this year be making about $1 billion in profit. Okay? So what we are trying to do is get rid of that forced prepayment and get the Postal Service back into strong financial position. And one of the ways you do that is give the Postal Service more flexibility. Now, when you talk about state banking, right now the only state in the union, as far as I understand, that has a state bank is North Dakota. And that bank has worked very, very well from probably the 1920s. I may be wrong on that, but I think it goes back that far. I think I am a believer in state banks. I'd like to see my state, Vermont, move in that direction, and other states as well. And essentially what it means is people are investing in their own state bank. They earn their interest. The state then reinvests that money into their communities, creating jobs in their communities, sensible investment, and so forth. What we are talking about for the Postal Service is not really a state bank. What we are dealing with is another issue. And the issue out there is that millions of low-income people simply cannot get a bank account in a regular bank. So what they do is go to these payday lenders. They get ripped off terribly. They're forced to pay very, very high rates to get their checks cashed or to deal with other financial issues. And what some of us are saying is that among other new services, the Postal Service should be able to go into that aspect of banking. And we think it would make money, and it would really help people save money on their financial service needs.
Okay. Just 30 seconds, Bernie, before the break. Other things that the post office could do?
Oh, a lot of things the Postal Service can do. Right now, I mean, it's so absurd. This happened to me. I went in during the holiday season, having bought a gift for my grandchild, and we couldn't get it packed. They can't wrap it. It's against the law for the Postal Service to wrap a holiday package, a gift. You can't, if you go into the Postal Service, you want 10 copies of a document, they can't do that. You want a hunting license, a fishing license, they can't do that. They can't right now mail wine or beer. So there are a lot of services that they can be providing that currently are against the law.
There you go. Okay. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. We'll be back with more of your questions for Senator Sanders right after this in our National Town Hall meeting, Brunch with Bernie, right here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Twenty minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour, our National Town Hall meeting with Senator Bernie Sanders, taking your calls. And Jennifer, listening in Albuquerque, New Mexico on KABQ. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, thank you, Tom and Senator Sanders, for taking my call. My call has to do with campaign donations and with the new Supreme Court rulings. I'm not sure whether or not the donor disclosure laws are in effect. I seem to recall something about, something trying to be passed in the Congress recently, but failing. But in light of the fact that what they're basically saying is that speech is money and money is speech, doesn't the public have the right to know whose money is speaking?
Oh, Jennifer, you are so right. Of course you're right. And pathetically, that used to be the position of the Republicans. What the Republicans used to say is, well, we really don't need much regulation of campaign spending, but at least the people have got a right to know. We want transparency, but they've backed away from that. So you have entities, so-called nonprofits, 501c4s, which can essentially hide the money that folks are spending. But Jennifer, in raising this issue, it's not just disclosure that we need. We really need to go a lot further than that. Let me just be very clear. As Tom has heard me say on many occasions, I worry very much that our country is now rapidly moving away from a democratic society with a strong middle class to an oligarchic form of society where both the economy and the political life of the nation are controlled by a really small number of multi-billionaires. And I think, Jennifer, you probably noticed a couple of weeks ago that in Las Vegas, Nevada, Sheldon Adelson welcomed a number of potential Republican candidates for president to come and chat with him. And you had this obscene event where these guys are coming to Sheldon Adelson, who's worth tens of billions of dollars, and they are explaining to him why they would be a good president, and in a sense asking for his anointment. And if they anoint him, whether it's a Bush, a Jeb Bush, or anybody else, that they will get hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. So if we are serious about retaining democracy in America in a very real sense, which means one person, one vote, and not allowing Sheldon Adelson or the Koch brothers be able to spend huge amounts of money electing their candidates, we need real campaign finance reform. And that means, among other things, overturning this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision. It means moving to public funding of elections. This McCutcheon decision that came down last week, 2 weeks ago, what was interesting about it is you had people like Clarence Thomas indicating that he wants to go further. He wants to remove all restrictions on campaign funding. And what that will mean, and that is, I suspect, where the court is moving and where the Republican Party wants to go. And if that happens, it will mean that people like the Koch brothers, who are worth $80 billion, will be able to donate as much money as they want directly, not through independent expenditures, but directly to candidate A, candidate B, candidate C. And this will completely and absolutely disrupt American democracy in the most fundamental way imaginable.
Chris in Fairfax, California, listening on the web stream for AM 760 out of Denver. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Good morning, Senator Sanders. And I have just one question. I understand that there is a bill being proposed on genetically modified organisms that would prevent states from banning their use. Can you tell me whether you're going to oppose that and maybe filibuster that bill, or where are we at on that bill?
Well, Chris, as it happens, interesting you asked me that question, because I introduced the bill to do exactly the opposite, to make it very clear that states in the United States of America do have the constitutional right to be able to label genetically modified organisms. As I suspect you know, the labeling of GMOs takes place all over Europe, in countries all over the world. I know that in Vermont, and I suspect in the other 49 states, people very much want to know what is in the food that they're feeding their kids and eating themselves. So I strongly believe in GMO labeling. We introduced the legislation as part of last year's agricultural bill to do that, and I will continue to fight for that.
Victor in Pittsburgh, Missouri, watching us on Free Speech TV. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, good afternoon, Senator. Senator Sanders, I wanted to ask a question. I was going to ask a question in reference to the wealthy, but I changed my mind. What I'm concerned about is there a way that you could actually force the corporations to buy only American?
Good.
As far as like the ones like the contractors that say they have to be American corporations, and also make them pay taxes every quarter.
All right, Victor, thanks for the question. I think one of the issues, economic issues, that concerns the average American a whole lot, concerns me a whole lot, is the fact that when you go shopping, it is harder and harder to buy products made in the United States. And a couple of years ago, I kind of was just doing some shopping, and I went to the gift shop at the Smithsonian Museum of American History. And lo and behold, what I discovered in their gift shop is almost all of their products were made in China, in Nicaragua, in countries all over the world, but not in the United States of America. So we brought those folks in. In fact, I just met with them literally yesterday to see how they're doing in beginning to buy American products and sell American products. And they're making some progress, not fast enough. But what Victor is asking is how we create a situation where, once again, in this country, we are actually producing the products that we consume. And a lot of ways that you can do that, but certainly at the root of it is transforming our trade, unfettered free trade policy, and demand that corporations, instead of running to China and Vietnam, stop producing the products that we need in this country. There's a variety of ways that we can do that, but certainly dealing with trade policies is at the root of that.
Senator Bernie Sanders, our Brunch with Bernie Hour, our national town hall meeting, taking your calls.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
Be sure to check out Bernie's Facebook page and his website over at sanders.senate.gov. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the place where we dare to ask, is Walmart a person? And we dare to say, no, I don't think so. It's the Thom Hartmann Program. It's our Brunch with Bernie Hour. Senator Bernie Sanders taking your calls in our national town hall meeting. And Bernie, you're here?
I am right here.
You are here. Great. Gordon in Spokane, Washington. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, Senator Sanders. I wanted to ask if you do decide to run for president, and I hope you do, how would you fund your campaign, and how would you compete against the Koch brothers and other big money on the right?
Well, I mean, that is, as I think about it and talk to a whole lot of people about it, that is certainly one of the major issues. Needless to say, Wall Street and corporate America and the Koch brothers are not going to be providing huge sums of money to my campaign, and I have never accepted corporate PACs in my life anyhow. I don't want their money. And that's a real problem. And the way I have done it in the past, running for the Senate from Vermont, is primarily through a whole lot of small campaign contributions. I can't remember right now, but I think in my last campaign, I think the average contribution was all of $40, and we raised, we got tens and tens and tens of thousands of folks making small contributions. So money is, we're living in an age where to run for president, you probably need well over $1 billion. Koch brothers are sitting there, they could write out a check for that tomorrow. And that is really one of the real stumbling blocks, not just for me, but for any serious person running for any significant office. You're going to have to figure out how we take on Adelson and the Koch brothers and the other billionaires. But to answer your question, Gordon, I think what we would have to do is very effectively just get a whole lot of small contributions from a whole large number of people.
Mark in Chico, California. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, how are you today?
Good.
I have a question concerning solar panels. They spend money building nuclear plants and tearing up the environment with coal. It seems like it would be cheaper, besides the $4 billion that goes to the coal and oil industry, wouldn't it be cheaper to put solar panels on every house in America? And there is a way to store it now, from what I understand. And the other thing I want to say is, besides you possibly running for president in 2016, I hope everybody gets out in 2014 and votes. And is there a way to set up a website to help people get IDs with donations? Thank you.
Okay, good. Two good points. Let me talk about your first point first. Mark, I think you make a very, very important point, and that is why I've introduced legislation for 10 million solar rooftops. If we make it clear that we're going to help people put up solar, if we continue to go forward on utility-scale solar, what ends up happening is the price of solar continues to decline. We learn how to install these things at less cost, and we can increase our ability to provide electricity through solar. Your point is very, very well taken. But it's not just solar. We've got to end subsidies to the coal companies, to the oil companies. The idea that you have companies like ExxonMobil, who in a given year, after making billions in profit, pay nothing in taxes, is totally absurd. So the goal here, and the scientists have been extremely clear, and they're getting more and more clear. Climate change is real. Climate change is already causing devastating problems for this country and the world in terms of floods, in terms of drought, in terms of forest fires, in terms of the rising of sea levels. Climate change is man-made. But the good news is we have the technology now and the knowledge now to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel into energy efficiency, weatherization, into such sustainable energies as solar. So, Mark, what you're asking me is a very, very important question, and I hope very much that we will be able to move forward aggressively in transforming our energy system. In terms of IDs, I suspect that the Democrats are already doing that, trying to help people register to vote and deal with all the obstacles put in the way by Republican governors. But your idea is also very important in that respect.
Just recently, both Presidents Carter and Clinton suggested that President Obama, by executive order, could have photographs put on all Social Security cards, which would instantly provide a federal ID for everybody. So it's just a thought. Cheryl Ann in Santa Monica, watching us on our YouTube channel. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Senator Sanders. Thanks for taking my call. I'm one of the long-term unemployed that were cut off in December, and I'm just curious, does the president have any power to override John Boehner's intentional and relentless obstruction against presenting this bill to Congress for a vote because of his own personal agenda to approve the Keystone Pipeline and to repeal ACA and the environmental regulations?
Cheryl, I wish the answer was yes, but it's not. But here's the story. What Cheryl is talking about is what I mentioned earlier in the show, that finally, after months and months of negotiations, we did get some Republican support, and we passed an extension of long-term unemployment benefits, 5 months retroactive. It is now in Boehner's court. And what Boehner is doing, first he said, well, it's unwieldy. I don't know how we could possibly do this retroactively, blah, 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 blah. And then the next thing he said, well, maybe if we have a Keystone Pipeline in there, we may consider it, or repeal the Affordable Care, whatever it is. Total nonsense. The way we beat it, Cheryl, I wish I could tell you there was something magical that the president can do. This is the issue we've been running up against every day of the week, whether it's raising the minimum wage, whether it's pay equity, whether it's creating jobs, whether it's protecting our veterans, whatever the issue may be. What Republicans are doing is obstructing in every which way. Now, the good news, though, is we passed it in the Senate. The good news is that the country is going to be focusing on the House, and these guys have fewer places to run. And already we're beginning to see a number of Republican House members who live in the real world, who know what's going on, to their constituents saying, you know what, we are prepared to vote for what the Senate did. And we've got to keep putting pressure on the House. And I think at the end of the day, we're going to beat Boehner on this. But we have to keep putting political pressure on him. People have got to be calling up their Republican congressmen and congresswomen and making sure that they vote for this legislation. So I know these are tough times, Cheryl, but hang in there, and hopefully we'll get this passed sooner than later.
Paul in South Lyon, Michigan. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Senator, you gave another brilliant speech on the Senate floor this week. Some people are blaming the president for deporting illegal aliens because they don't understand how laws are made and enforced. The president isn't a dictator, even though the Republicans keep saying he is. He's already stuck his neck out to stop deporting young illegals, and the Republicans are threatening to impeach him for that. and they're saying they won't pass reform because he won't enforce the law. So who do you think is responsible for the failure of immigration reform being passed?
The evidence is pretty clear. We passed the bill in the Senate. I voted for it. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I think it was the greatest bill in the history of the world. It was not. Had many problems with it, but weighing the pluses and the minuses, I thought the pluses outweighed the minuses. Among other things I managed to get is a very strong bill which would provide job opportunities for young people in this country. Because one of the concerns that I have about immigration reform is that a lot of entry-level workers come from other countries to take jobs that young Americans could use. But having said that, the bill was passed in the United States Senate. It took a lot of work. It is now sitting someplace in the U.S. House of Representatives. And, Paul, I'm not hearing a whole lot of discussion from our colleagues there in the House to do the right thing. Do the right thing for the American economy, do the right thing for 12 million people who are living in the shadows. So I think in terms of immigration reform, the answer is pretty simple to your question. The Senate passed the bill. The House has not yet taken it up.
Okay. Corey, watching us over at sanders.senate.gov in Grosse Pointe, Michigan. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. I believe our number one national security threat is the NSA spying on Congress and the Supreme Court. It just totally eviscerates any balance of powers between the branches. I'm wondering, Senator, why haven't you done more or anything to stop NSA spying on Congress and the Supreme Court?
Well, Corey, I probably have, maybe not done enough, but I've done as much as anybody else has, and this has been a very, very important issue for me. In fact, we've introduced legislation which would end a lot of what the NSA is currently doing, and it's an issue that I feel very, very strongly about. Unfortunately, Corey, one member of the United States Senate cannot, simply snap his fingers and make everything happen. But what we are seeing now is, I think, more and more concern, A, among the American people, and B, among members of Congress, to deal with the reality that it's not just the NSA, but other intelligence agencies are in significant ways out of control. And that, yes, we want to protect the American people from terrorism, but we don't do it by denigrating the Constitution of the United States.
15 minutes before the hour, Senator Bernie Sanders with us in our national town hall meeting, Brunch with Bernie. We'll be back with more of your calls for Senator Sanders. Be sure to check out his websites at sanders.senate.gov and over on his Facebook page as well.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And you can drop into our live free chat room over at thomhartmann.com as well. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Cliff in Port Townsend, Washington, watching on our Thom Hartmann app. Hey, Cliff, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hey, Tom. Hi, Senator Sanders. Under the current Medicare rules, out-of-pocket expenses can be much higher in rural districts than the standard 20% of Medicare-approved payments. And I wondered if this is something that can be fixed by the President's executive order, or is it a fix that Congress needs to make?
I suspect that it's a fix that Congress would have to make. In my view, Cliff, Medicare does a very, very good job, but it needs to be improved, and you've touched on one of the ways it needs to be improved. And there are many other improvements that are needed. What we are dealing with right now is an effort by the Republicans to substantially weaken Medicare. The Ryan budget that I mentioned a moment ago begins the process of converting Medicare from what it is today into a voucher program where people, instead of having access to Medicare, would be given a check to go out to the private insurance companies and get the health care they need, and for a dozen different reasons. This is a disastrous idea. Other people want to raise the Medicare eligibility age to 67 to 70 years of age, or what it may be. Other people have ideas that would result in higher out-of-pocket payments for seniors from Medicare. So I think Medicare is a solid program, but we need to make significant improvements in it. And as I think you may know, Cliff, my view is that at the end of the day, what we need in this country is to move toward a national health care program which guarantees health care to all people as a right. And probably we could use Medicare as the foundation for that program, making it available to people of all ages, making improvements in it. But where we are right now is today we have tens of millions of people with no health insurance, many others with high deductibles, high copayments. The Affordable Care Act has helped somewhat. We've gotten many millions of people into insurance, so that's a good thing, expanding Medicaid. But we need a simple, straightforward, cost-effective health care system guaranteeing health care to all people.
Julian in San Bernardino, California, watching on YouTube. You're on the air with Senator Sanders. We have just a minute to the break, Julian.
Hi, Rudy. Hi, Tom. I was wondering if you think we started focusing on agricultural issues like buying local produce or pushing for organic or non-GMO, it would start a conversation of buying local American products. This is something that we consume, and it would create an interest in buying American products if businesses notice that consumers are starting to buy local items.
Well, Julian, I think that's a very good point, and it's clearly already happening. I can tell you that on Vermont, you come in the summertime in Vermont, and in dozens and dozens and dozens of towns throughout the state, virtually every town, you're going to have farmers markets. You have CSAs where people are investing in local farms and getting produce. And you go to restaurants, and restaurants are advertising our products come from local farms. There is, for a variety of reasons, a strong movement toward localism. And I think that's a good thing. I think that is a good thing economically and for many other reasons as well.
Senator Bernie Sanders with us, taking your calls. More of your calls for Senator Sanders right after this. Stick around. Welcome back. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, and it's our Brunch with Bernie Hour, our national town hall meeting, taking your calls. Chris in Seattle, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Senator Sanders, it's such an honor to finally get on with you. You are definitely my hero and like one of the last honest members of Congress, and I'm proud to be on.
Thank you, Chris.
So there's this issue going on right now in Nevada. The Bureau of Land Management is basically going toe-to-toe with the Bundy family over their use of grazing on BLM land. And this is really coming to, the forefront. I don't know if you're familiar with the issue. And also the Bureau of Land Management in Nevada has been doing these horse roundups. And I don't know if you're familiar with that issue either. But I'd just like to see if you could touch on both of those and where you stand on them, if you're familiar.
Well, Chris, I got to apologize that I really am not familiar with the Bundy family there and the issues that are going on. So I'll try to brush up on it, but I don't have good answers for you at this moment.
Okay. Robert in Quemedo, New Mexico. Do I have that right, Robert, watching Free Speech TV?
Yes, sir. Quemedo.
Oh, okay. Great. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Thank you. Senator, concerning the Department of Veteran Affairs, They have just passed along a new rule that in order to collect your benefits, such as travel benefits, that you have to have a bank account to make an electric funds transfer. And I'm already living on disability and don't have that much money, and I just don't think, I think that's discrimination for one thing, and I would be curious to what your thoughts are.
Robert, are you telling me that what they are making you do now is have electronic banking?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. I'm chairman of the Veterans Committee. Let me check into that. And give my office a ring in Washington, if you could.
Great.
Okay, we'll try to get you an answer for that.
Great. Eudora in Montpelier, listening on WDEV. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Bernie, I want to tell you a sob story. I've been trying to get through to you for all years of one. I have MS and I have seizures and strokes, and I have 6 more physical problems. Who's going to give me insurance? Would you please tell me?
Okay, Eudora, what I would like you to do is, as soon as you hang up the phone now, call up my office, 1-800-339-9834, and we'll see what we can do. Okay?
Great.
Please do that.
Thank you very much. Sal in Peoria, Arizona. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Well, first of all, I'd like to commend Senator Sanders for standing up for what's right and for the middle class. I want to talk just a minute about and ask a question in regards related to climate change, but taking a little bit different approach to it. You know, we've got lots of shortages, as you know, in gas and oil and water, food, shrinking farmlands, extinction of the middle class. And I'm wondering, maybe, you know, by addressing these issues, these are only temporary fixes, because what I see as a bigger, more holistic problem is the overpopulation of this planet. And I'm wondering if perhaps that would be a better way to direct our attention, maybe starting with the idea of no tax breaks for kids. I mean, we're at 7.5 billion people right now. Where are we going to go when we go up to 8, 9, 10 billion people and more? I think we have to address that issue.
Well, let me just say this. I mean, I think the answer is, and we're seeing it happen, is countries now providing contraception and better education to women, who will then, for the first time in some cases, make decisions themselves about the number of children they want and feel that they can afford to have. And I think, you know, we're making some progress on that, but we have to keep that going. But in terms of all of these other issues, I thought what you were going to say, which is what I believe gets back to an earlier caller, is that we have got to recognize that we cannot simply live a lifestyle which says more and more and more and more, and that $1 billion is not enough, that we need $40 billion, that we need $80 billion, that 10 pair of shoes is not enough, that we need 100 pair of shoes. And that, you're getting back to the call that we heard a little while ago from Julian, I think it was, dealing with the issue of localism and purchasing local. We've got to figure out a way to get satisfaction out of our lives through community, through it being part of something in our community, knowing the people who are producing things ourselves, enjoying people in our community. And I think clearly one of the problems that you have in a hyper-capitalism is we're being told that it's absolutely imperative to buy, even regardless of whether we need what we're being sold. So I think, you know, that is an environmental issue, it's a social issue, it's a personal issue, but I think it's an issue we should be talking about.
Senator, we have a minute, 10 seconds. Not enough for a call. Your thoughts for the week?
Well, what my thoughts are is I hope everybody, and you can go to my website, sanders.senate.gov, you can go elsewhere, take a hard look at the Ryan budget and try to understand what a budget is about and what it says when you have a major political party talking about huge tax breaks for the wealthiest people in this country and unconscionable cuts in programs on nutrition, education, healthcare, the environment, all of which impact working families. And I hope that people educate themselves on these issues. I hope they get involved politically. I hope they come out and vote. But we have got to stand together against the assault that is now taking place against the working families and the middle class of this country. So those are my thoughts of the day, I guess.
Yeah, and very well done. Senator, thank you so much for being with us today and every day, all these years. It's so appreciated.
Okay, Tom. Well, thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Your ability to be here and be here for the American people. We'll do that.